What if I told you that the moment your dog takes its final breath is not the end of a life, but the beginning of a journey, one that unfolds in ways more beautiful, more mysterious, and more comforting than you may have ever imagined? What if I told you that every ounce of loyalty, affection, and silent companionship your dog offered you in this lifetime echoes into the next, shaping what happens to their soul in the first days after death? Imagine those last quiet seconds, the gentle rise and fall of their chest, the warmth fading from their fur, the room growing still. While you're holding onto their body with trembling hands, something you can't see is already beginning to rise, to gather, to remember. According to the spiritual insights Edgar Cayce shared across decades of readings, the passing of a beloved animal is not a disappearance. It's a transition, a movement of consciousness from the physical world into a realm of subtle experience, one that responds directly to love. Cayce often described the universe as layers of vibration, levels of awareness. He suggested that everything humans, animals, even the natural world, exists as a combination of physical, mental, and spiritual energy. And while animals do not possess the same type of individualized soul structure as humans, he taught that they absolutely carry spirit, identity, and continuity. They are not empty forms. They do not vanish. They are part of the same divine tapestry you and I are woven into. In more than one reading, Cayce referred to the group soul of animals, a kind of shared spiritual consciousness. But he also made room for exceptions. Animals who, through love, through service, through deep connection with humans, begin to form an individualized pattern. In modern terms, you could say they become spiritually distinct. They develop something like a signature, a recognizable essence. Anyone who has ever looked into their dog's eyes and felt intelligence, emotion, personality, and presence knows exactly what this means. Cayce's most fascinating example involved a small dog named Mona. In a life reading for her human companion, someone asked about the dog's origins. Cayce responded that Mona had been with them before, in a completely different form. She had once been a lioness during a Roman-era incarnation. Think about that for a moment. The soul essence of a lion, fierce and powerful, returning centuries later as a small, loyal dog whose only mission was love and companionship. If a soul can move from a lion to a family pet, imagine the vastness of the spiritual landscape our animals come from and eventually return to. And if that is true, then your dog, your best friend, your protector, your shadow, your comfort may very well have walked with you before, and they may walk with you again. So what happens in those first moments after death? According to Cayce's philosophy, the soul essence enters a state of release, like exhaling after carrying a long weight. There is no fear, no confusion, just freedom, a drifting upward into a gentle vibrational space that mirrors everything they've known and loved. Animals don't cling the way humans do. They don't fight the transition. They surrender into it, naturally, peacefully, as if moving from one room into another. And here is something Cayce emphasized that brings comfort to so many. Souls that share deep affection remain connected. That means your dog doesn't vanish into a distant sky. Their presence lingers around the emotional bond you built. In other words, love becomes the bridge. Love becomes the place where they wait, where they rest, where they continue. That's why so many people sense their dog after they're gone. The faint sound of nails on the floor, the feeling of weight at the foot of the bed, the soft warmth of a presence near the heart. These moments aren't fantasies. According to Cayce's worldview, they are echoes of a real connection, a spiritual imprint that doesn't dissolve with death. When you cry for them, they do not suffer. When you miss them, they are not lost. And when you think of them, truly think of them, Cayce would say you raise your own vibration enough to meet theirs, if only for a second. In that first day, that first night, Your dog's soul feels the release of the body, the memory of love, and the pull toward a realm shaped by comfort rather than fear. The journey continues, the story expands, and the bond remains. What if I told you that the first hours after your dog passes are not a fading into darkness, but a gentle awakening, as if a door opens into a realm where they suddenly feel lighter, clearer, and more aware than they ever could inside a physical body? According to Edgar Cayce's spiritual teachings, the early moments after physical death are a time of remembering, of reorientation, and of profound peace. And for animals whose hearts are unburdened by human fear, guilt, or attachment, that shift is even more natural and serene. Cayce often described death as a kind of change of vibration, like stepping from a dense, heavy world into one of subtle harmony. For humans, that transition can feel complicated because of our thoughts, emotions, and unfinished business. But animals, especially dogs, move through it with remarkable ease. They don't cling to regret. They don't question their worth. They don't fear judgment. They simply rise. Imagine that first moment of release. The body grows still, but the awareness lifts. Your dog begins to perceive things not through eyes or ears, but through a kind of intuitive, spacious knowing. The room feels brighter. Shapes feel softer. Their consciousness begins to expand outward, as if remembering something incredibly familiar. Cayce taught that the soul, or spirit essence, recognizes the spiritual plane instantly because it exists in harmony with it. Death is not a shock. It's a homecoming. And what do they feel? Cayce's descriptions of the afterlife emphasize three sensations: freedom, clarity, and connection. Freedom from the weight of aging or illness. Clarity as their awareness sharpens. Connection to the energies and beings that inhabit the non-physical space. Your dog would feel a gentle pull toward the realm that matches their vibration, a realm of instinctive love and simple joy. Many people wonder if dog feels fear or loneliness in those early hours. Cayce's teachings offer an answer that brings comfort. Animals do not experience the transition as loss. They do not think, "I'm leaving my family." Instead, they sense the continuation of the bond. In their subtle state, they feel your love as clearly as you feel their absence. The connection becomes a kind of light, guiding them, comforting them, surrounding them. Some of Cayce's readings suggest that animals, especially those deeply bonded with humans, linger near their physical environment for a short time, not because they're stuck, but because they're curious. They explore their new state. They feel the shift in energy. They sense the emotional currents of the people they loved. So in those first days after death, your dog may be closer than you think, not trapped, not confused, but gently observing from a place just beyond your perception. It's why so many people describe feeling a brush of fur against their leg when no animal is there, or hearing that familiar breathing pattern at night, or catching the faint scent of their dog's coat in the air. According to Cayce's spiritual framework, these aren't signs of haunting or distress. They're signs of presence, signs of closeness, signs that the bond still holds and that your dog's awareness still resonates with your heart. And what about the idea of a life review? Cayce described this process for humans as a reflection of choices, emotions, and lessons. But for animals, it is much simpler. They don't review decisions, they reflect on experience. They absorb the emotional atmosphere of their life, the affection, the trust, the moments of fear, the moments of joy, and they carry that essence with them into their next phase. It is not judgment, it is understanding. Your dog's first days in the spiritual realm are shaped entirely by love. They feel drawn toward energies that match their own. They gravitate toward peace. They move toward familiar souls, not only human, but also other animals with whom they've shared past experiences. Cayce's reading about Mona, the dog lion, reinforces this idea. Souls recognize each other across lifetimes, across forms, across centuries, and that recognition begins immediately after death. So picture your dog, no longer limited by age or pain, exploring this new environment with curious ease. They are not wandering blindly. They are moving in a space where their instincts guide them, instincts rooted in love, loyalty, and the deep simplicity of their nature. They feel safe. They feel warm. They feel held. Death cannot erase a connection that was forged in unconditional love. According to Cayce, love is the most powerful energy in the universe, and it becomes the very ground your dog walks on during these early days. The more you love them, the brighter their path becomes. In those first moments, your dog is not lost. They are found, not gone, but transformed, and every thought you send their way becomes part of their journey, a soft, luminous thread connecting your world to theirs. What if I told you that as your dog continues its first days in the spiritual realm, something remarkable begins to unfold, something Edgar Cayce often described, but never in dramatic terms. He spoke of it as a natural alignment, a settling, almost like the way water calms after being stirred. Your dog's soul, now free from the physical world, begins to gravitate toward its own spiritual home frequency, shaped by the emotions, relationships, and experiences of its life with you. Cayce explained that every being, human or animal, moves into a dimension that reflects its inner state, not a place created by judgment, but by resonance. For animals, especially dogs, whose lives are defined by loyalty, affection, curiosity, and often pure joy, this resonance is incredibly gentle. Their spiritual environment becomes peaceful, familiar, and comforting. So in these early days after death, your dog is not wandering in darkness. They are settling into a space that feels like the emotional heart of your relationship. Imagine your dog entering a realm where movement is effortless, where form is flexible, where communication isn't bound by sound. They sense the presence of energies that feel like old friends. They feel drawn to the beings they've known before, even if the forms have changed. Cayce's story about Mona, first a lioness in ancient Rome, then a small modern dog, reminds us that souls recognize each other across lifetimes, not by shape, but by vibration. So if your dog has been with you, or with your family, across incarnations, that recognition rises quickly during these early afterlife days. Cayce often said that animals exist within what he called a group soul, a shared consciousness of instinct and spiritual memory. But in rare and meaningful relationships, the ones where a profound bond is formed, an animal can start to develop a more individualized spiritual identity. Your dog may have been one of these. If your bond was deep, if your connection felt almost human, then according to Cayce, your dog may enter a state where it begins to form a distinct path, separate from the collective group consciousness. That shift doesn't happen over lifetimes. It can begin right here, in the first days after death. This is why people sometimes feel a moment of intense closeness after their dog passes, a sense that the dog is even more present, more attentive, more aware than before. It isn't your imagination. Cayce believed the spiritual plane operates on thought and feeling rather than physical distance. So when you grieve, when you remember them, when you whisper their name into the quiet room, your dog can sense it instantly. They move toward that emotional signal the way they once moved toward the sound of your voice. And in those early moments, they don't feel sorrow. They feel affection. They feel recognition. In their new state, they understand your love more deeply than they ever could in physical form. They no longer feel confusion about separation. They feel the continuity of connection. This is why so many people report dreams that feel more like visits, dreams where their dog appears young again, vibrant, healthy, full of life. Cayce believed that dreams are one of the easiest bridges between the physical and spiritual planes. When the emotional bond is strong, the soul of your dog may come close enough for you to feel, hear, or see them in that dream space. During these early days, your dog also experiences what Cayce described as the drawing. It is a gentle pull toward the realm that aligns with their highest nature. For humans, this drawing can feel like a review of life. For animals, it is more like instinctual movement toward comfort and harmony. They follow the path that feels familiar, that feels warm, that feels like love. And often, that path leads toward the people, places, and energies that shape their earthly life. This is why, according to Cayce's philosophy, your dog may be close to you longer than you think. Not trapped, not lingering in confusion, but choosing to stay near the source of its deepest emotional imprint. You may feel their presence in the quiet moments, the way your home feels different, but not entirely empty, the way certain rooms carry a warmth that seems out of place, the way your heart lifts unexpectedly when you think of them. These are not coincidences. They are the residue of connection. The early days after death are not an ending. They are the unfolding of a new relationship between you and your dog, one where closeness is no longer limited by physical space. They are exploring, adjusting, recognizing, and settling into a dimension where love has shape, memory has weight, and bonds form pathways rather than attachments. Your dog is not lost. They are becoming. They are learning. They are remembering who they are beyond the body. And throughout these first days, one truth keeps rising. Your love helps shape their soul. What if I told you that as the first days in the spiritual realm unfold into the first weeks, your dog begins a new phase of its journey, one shaped not only by memory, but by purpose? According to Edgar Cayce's teachings, every soul essence, even that of an animal, moves toward growth, harmony, and alignment with the greater source of life. This means your dog's afterlife experience isn't static. It evolves. It deepens. It becomes a continuation of the love they lived on Earth, now expanded into something even more profound. Cayce often described the non-physical world as layered dimensions of vibration, each one responding to the inner state of the being, moving through it. As your dog settles into its natural spiritual frequency, it begins to understand its place within this new environment. Not through thought, the way humans understand, but through resonance. Your dog instinctively moves toward energies that feel familiar, comforting, and uplifting. These energies may include other animals they once knew, but they can also include the essence of people they loved who passed before. This is where something beautiful happens. Cayce suggested that animals remain connected to the human souls they bonded with, even after both have transitioned to the spiritual dimensions. The relationship doesn't dissolve, it simply changes form. During these early weeks, your dog begins to sense your emotional energy, not with the limitations of the body, but with a clearer, more direct awareness. Every memory you hold, every moment of love you send, becomes a kind of beacon, and your dog moves toward it effortlessly. Some people ask whether their dog waits for them. According to the spirit-based principles Cayce laid out, the answer is yes, but not in the way we imagine. They don't wait with impatience. They don't feel the passing of time. Instead, they exist in a state where connection is immediate, where thought and presence intertwine. When your time eventually comes, the reunion is instant, seamless, natural. But until then, your dog is not sitting in loneliness. They are growing. Cayce believed that every being in the universe participates in evolution of consciousness. For humans, this is complex, involving lessons, challenges, and decisions. For animals, the path is simpler. Growth comes through love, through service, through companionship, and through the deep bonds they form. So the love you gave your dog was not only a comfort in life, it is now a catalyst for their spiritual development. In this next part of their journey, your dog begins to integrate the emotional essence of their earthly experience. The moments when you held them, the afternoons you walked together, the times you tended to them when they were afraid or sick, the trust you built, the comfort they offered you when words were not enough. All these experiences form the foundation of their spiritual identity. Cayce taught that strong emotional bonds refine a soul's vibration, and animals aligned with love become brighter, gentler, and more attuned to the higher dimensions. This is why your dog feels closer in certain moments, even weeks or months after their passing. Grief may come in waves, but love surfaces in its quiet ways, through memories, dreams, or sudden peaceful feelings that appear without explanation. According to Cayce, when the heart opens, when memory softens into gratitude, the veil between the physical and spiritual becomes thinner. Your dog senses your openness instantly, and through that connection, they come closer. Over time, your dog's spirit begins to rest in a place that feels like home, not a physical location, but a state of harmony. The spiritual plane becomes familiar to them, as natural as running through a field or curling beside you on the couch once was. They understand, instinctively, that all connections continue beyond form. They understand that love was always the real substance of their life, and remains the real substance of their existence now. And so, the journey continues. Not away from you, but around you. Not in separation, but in resonance. Cayce believed that nothing of value is ever lost, and that relationships rooted in love become threads woven through multiple lifetimes. This means your dog's story is not over. Your connection is not finished. You may meet again in dreams, in memory, or in some distant lifetime where roles shift and paths cross in new ways. As these early spiritual days turn into the next phase of their existence, your dog carries forward everything beautiful they shared with you. They move with peace. They grow with love. They evolve with purpose. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces of the unseen world, they still recognize your spirit as part of their own. Nothing loved is ever truly gone. And your dog, now free, now whole, now radiant in its spiritual nature, continues onward, guided by the love you gave and the bond that will outlast time itself.